So today on the Made to Thrive show, we've got Gary Arenson from Ergotherapy. He's a qualified physiotherapist and ergonomics specialist. It's a privilege to be able to tap into his expertise and experience. So welcome to the show, Gary.
It's lovely to be with you. Thank you.
So can you just tell us a little bit about your narrative, where ergonomics came in and how you pivoted from clinical practice?
Yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. I was in clinical practice 20 years ago, and like you experienced, we think we're going to see people from the sports arena, and we'll end up seeing people whose etiology is very often, and more often than not, from the work arena. And I took a deep dive into that environment, and I really felt that someone needed to take ownership of that space in terms of giving people, really empowering people with practical understanding and knowledge of how to transform that space into environments that work for them. And so what I did was I left the clinical environment, and I spent a long time developing a training program, actually. Ergotherapy started as a training company. And what we did was we started empowering people with knowledge based on saying, whatever you have, let's enable you to optimize that for you in the way in which you like to work. Obviously, during that process, and it was a very successful formula because it was one of my criteria has always been to filter everything through a practical prism. So if it's not practical for the person that I'm speaking to or not realistic, I feel like I'm going to be wasting my time because the compliance is not going to be there. So it's about filtering everything in a practical way. And because we did that, I think that it was very transformative for people. But at the same time, people were still wanting to know about product. So if I do buy a chair, what must I buy, etc. And so a couple of years into the business, we then did a very intensive research into the chair industry, locally and internationally, visited trade shows, visited factories, and saw how people would respond to me as a customer. And I was shocked at what was available. And I naively and brazenly, perhaps at the time, thought that we could do something better using a knowledge of the body as a reference point rather than a knowledge of design at the time. But I think that it was a pretty powerful assessment criteria for me as a starting point in terms of the designs that we started to follow, and the chairs that we started to design and develop. And that's been really, but what we've always done is combine that knowledge component, which was part of our roots, with the product. So it's never just about the product. It's about making sure that you have the knowledge to use that product correctly. I think that's really been the beginnings of the journey. And I think there was a personal aspect to the journey as well, which was that I wasn't having any fun in clinical practice. That's the truth. And I think for me, life was about finding that passion within the workspace. And I think ergonomics has a lot to say on that as well. And I think that's why for me, it's been a tremendous journey.
So what I'm hearing you is that a lot of these patients often would go back into their workspace and all the work you did in practice wasn't that effective. It didn't sort of sustain their rehabilitation. So you thought possibly ergonomics, you started training, and do you still offer the training, or is it only products now to train people how to use ergonomics?
We still do the training, absolutely. So we still do have a training program that, regardless of what product you're using, will give you an understanding of your work environment and how to optimize that, and then also give you an understanding of your body in that environment and how to optimize that, and making all these things real for people. It's not just about saying don't sit for long or maintain the perfect posture, because it's not about that. It's about having a working understanding of your body in your workspace, and how to take control of both.
So you've almost got a combination of the clinical experience, because from what I know that your sales force is mainly made up of physiotherapists that can do the training. Correct. And the clinical experience, and then the product design. Is that correct?
That's us. So I think that's what gives us that hybrid of saying, let's understand what product will work best for you. And at the same time, though, we will ensure that that product will work, we set up optimally for you in the real world.
Great. So let's go on to posture and alignment. Why is it so important for the correct posture and alignment? And, what are the stats showing, sitting versus standing that you can just share with the listeners and the audience about how important this part of life is?
I think posture is so important. First of all, because posture is so, I don't know what the correct phrase is. I call it time intensive. What I mean by that is that posture refers to the way in which we hold our bodies over extended periods of time, and time has a significant effect. So I think that's partly why posture is important. And also, posture means that you are using and working your body most efficiently. That's what ideal posture implies. So suboptimal posture implies that you're driving a car with one of the four tires being a slightly different size. It will go, but it's just not going to feel the same. And I think that's why posture is so relevant, and so important. And because poor posture really does give us suboptimal experiences of our day. We are more fatigued than we should be. We are in more pain and spasm than we should be. Long term, in terms of curvatures, in terms of general fatigue, in terms of scoliosis, in terms of misaligned vertebrae, etc. All of these things impact over time, and the impact on these, of what I'm saying, is cumulative. If posture was a 10-minute exercise a day, I don't think these things would be as relevant. Yeah. Posture is a 10-hour reality of our working day, and that is why it becomes such a compounded and important factor.
About spinal alignment, can you just sort of expand on why that's important? I've noticed a big difference, and I don't want to go into the weeds of the products right now. I want to do that a bit later. But I've noticed a big difference in my alignment just with the very desk and standing more than I ever have for my workday.
Right. Yeah, it is. There's more pressure on the spine in sitting than in any other position. So I think what the research, and we'll perhaps get onto it if you want to speak more about standing, but it's not just about any one posture, because the body is designed for movement, and it's not about assuming the perfect posture and staying that way the whole day, because you will then still move into a pain threshold, above a pain threshold. It's about movement, and it's about balance. So it's about saying, when you're sitting, sit brilliantly, sit optimally, and sit in a way that works for you, right? It's not about sitting in a textbook position. It's, I don't mind slouching is when you move, is when you don't let the chair follow you into a position. Now, see, for me, my approach to ergonomics very often is, life's hard enough. Let the chair do some of the work, for me, because for me, that's real, So it's about, by all means, lean back and, be on a phone call, leaning back and change the position of your spine and your hips. Take a phone call in an alternative posture, and then, yes, it is much easier to maintain the ideal curvatures of the spine in standing than in sitting. And again, just to get back to what I was saying, it's about balance. So when you sit optimally, then ideally have the opportunity in your workday to be able to sometimes sit and work and sometimes stand and work. And more and more research is showing how much more optimal that is.
Do you know any of the stats with regards to cardiovascular function and, these chronic conditions like cancer that have been shown to be exacerbated by long-term sitting compared to standing?
The catchphrase "sitting is the new smoking" is caught on quite quickly, and I think it's pretty true in the sense that it's not just about standing either. So I just want to paraphrase that again by saying it's about sitting great and about standing great, and having the ability to do both while working. But yeah, absolutely, there is research that shows that if you're sitting all day, increased risk of cardiovascular disease, increased risk of diabetes, increased risk of back pain significantly. So thrombosis as well. There was a study by Hopkins University that even had impact on cancer statistics. So I think that the effects of sitting all day have started to become better understood and more far-reaching. There's also an emotional component. I speak to people whose days are being transformed by having sitting and standing, there's an emotional connection as well in terms of being able to be more engaged and happier because ultimately your body is happier.
So do you think a lot of the population is more educated with regards to posture and alignment and standing workstations? Because it just seems a lot of people don't value their posture, or is that changing over time in the workplace? And now obviously at home with lockdown, are people, engaging you with regards to their alignment and their posture?
Yes. I mean, I would say yes and no. On the one hand, yes, in the sense that people have very extensively engaged with us during this lockdown because they've started to see the impact that sitting at a dining room chair for 8 or 10 hours can have. That novelty wears really, really thin. It really does. And they've started to appreciate that they need equipment, the right equipment, and patterns of using that equipment optimally. So a lot of people have reached out in this time because their work environment has been transformed. But at the same time, I'm always saying to people, why do you accept an environment that's not comfortable and that's not cool for you? I think there's still a lot of passivity and acceptance regarding work. In the same way that I left clinical practice because I wanted to have more fun and I wanted to pursue, still within my field of knowledge, but to have, a day that was filled with more passion. I think people often just resign themselves to work being work. It's not meant to be cool. It's not meant to be comfortable. I'm meant to kind of finish every day with a headache. And I throw that back, because I think that's reactive, and I think that's lazy, and I think that we can empower ourselves with a heck of a lot more and transform. And I'm saying what I'm saying is I think that there's a physical component to what I'm saying, and there's a psychological and emotional component to what I'm saying, and I believe that that ergonomics speaks to all of those things.
Absolutely. And I think that sort of just confirms the principle and pillars we have at Made to Thrive, because one of them is getting up on a Monday morning saying TGIM, thank God it's Monday, not TGIF, but work is seen as bad and weekends are seen as good, holidays are seen as good, and the work week is seen as bad. So if we can make it a more comfortable environment, then possibly people will, from a physical point of view, more enjoy going to work because the employers are putting time, energy, and resources into making sure they're in a comfortable space. And hopefully that's going to transcend into companies looking after their employees in more ways than one.
Absolutely. I think that, I love that ethos of Made to Thrive. And for me, it's, responsibility is, the ability to choose your response, and I think that's what we try and encourage people to do when it comes to their work environment, when it comes to their workspace, and when it comes to how they're interacting with their workspace.
Good. I see you, from what I remember, got 4 children. You've got you got kids' chairs as well and kids' ergonomics. I think if we're going to value our children, their alignment and their posture, they're not as strong as I think we were when we were young, climbing trees and not being on devices and not seeing screens when we were like, 10, 15. Their alignment and their posture is more important than it's ever been in history. Tell us a little bit about posture alignment product for children. I'm sure a lot of listeners are going to be concerned about that.
Yeah. Ergonomic seating for kids has been a challenge in two ways. Number one is their thigh length is limited, because their thigh length is shorter, their ability to sit back in a product and take up the full depth of the seat and get the benefit of back support was always limited. So you've got kids that are sitting perched, at the front edge of any chair. And the other thing is that when they're working at a table, whether it's a homework table or a dining room table, wherever it is, generally their feet are on the ground. Okay. So that's another reason why they're perching forward. People need to feel anchored. Your posture needs you to be anchored on the ground. And that's why even for people in, shorter people in the work environment will be facing the same dynamic. They sit perched at the front edge of their chairs. So what we did was we redesigned one of our primary chairs, but we shrunk it. And so what we did was we took the same contours for the lumbar spine, you know, following that S-shaped curve of the spine. We took the same features that allowed you to, you know, your posture to be followed into various positions, but we completely reduced the depth of the seat. So kids up to the age of 11 or 12 would be able to, from the age of 6 up until the age of 11 or 12, would be able to take up the full depth of this reduced seat size. And then it's got a foot ring so that you can use this chair at any height. You know, you can sit at the kitchen table, you know, while you're, you know, while dad's, you know, making supper. Look how modern and non-sexist I am. You know, and hang out and do homework there, or you can do it at the dining room table, or you can do it at your home. But it's quite a transformative experience for kids.
Well, great. And I think you've, you know, reaching a market that is really important, and our kids and teen postures are fundamental, you know, to their well-being, their development, and who they are, making sure with all the screen time, you know, I'm happy my son, you know, 16 years old, is sitting on a really good, you know, ergonomic chair. I know a lot about ergonomics, and I think that's important for people listening, because I think the world has changed from a screen time point of view, and they need to make sure that the environment is conducive to learning and to correct alignment and posture.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, even with older kids, as kids get into older grades and, you know, matric and all the pressure that is on kids for those grades and to perform and into tertiary education, you know, we you know, parents are spending and investing in education, but kids are trying to find, you know, trying to get themselves comfortable on the fat sack, you know, in the bedroom or somewhere. And it's amazing to see the impact that the right equipment can have. It's, you know,
yeah. I mean, what value would you place, if I have to ask you this question, what value would you place on your children? I mean, you got 4 from what I understand. What value would you place on your children sitting correctly and having the correct ergonomics?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, you know, we all have a frame of reference for what we consider expensive for different things, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I'll get people, you know, that will come in a $1 million car, but will consider a chair that they're going to spend many multiples of more time sitting in to be expensive, you know. So there's always ironies regarding our frame of reference for what we consider expensive items and what we prepare to spend money on. And for me, it's about showing people the impact and actually the incredibly low cost of ownership of ergonomic product, because I don't want you not sitting in a chair that you've purchased from us. That would upset me greatly, you know. So if you're spending thousands of hours, you know, over time, it should be an incredible investment that continues to give you returns. That's what we want out of the product, and that we should be applying the same thing to our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to know why ergotherapy is so different from the competition out there. I was taken back by your motto, guaranteeing a pain-free, awesome workday that you deserve. That's on your website. Tell us why, you know, ergotherapy is the leader out there.
I think what makes us who we are is I think that we are, I think all companies claim to be people focused, but I think we know what works for people. We've had a lot of experience with what works, and we want to make sure that it works for you. So ultimately, it's about having designed the right product, but then always adding a knowledge component to ensure that you use that product correctly. And ultimately, the market benefits from the fact that I'm a people pleaser by nature. So there's a comfort guarantee on our products, which means that if the product for you is not awesome, I'll refund you in full.
Sure.
We will certainly try and get you comfortable. We won't give up without a fight, in the sense that we'll try and get you comfortable. Are you using it correctly? Or otherwise, maybe the choice wasn't correct, and let's try you in something else.
Okay.
But ultimately, there's no fine print. If it's not awesome, we'll refund you. And I think it's that approach that has made us unique, and that has given us the market traction that I'm very grateful that we have.
Yeah, great. Well, let's go into a little bit of the weeds with regards to your products, because I found your very desk in terms of just changing the height and being able to stand during my workday, incredibly valuable to my day. Tell us about your standing. Tell us about your chairs. I'm in a NetOne chair here, which I find extremely comfortable. Give us a little bit of a rundown on the products.
Sure, thank you. Let's start with chairs. I think for me, going back to when we started looking at the chair, at what was available, I was pretty gobsmacked at the way that chairs were designed, because as you know, you've got a natural lumbar curve, a lumbar lordosis, and the chairs were going exactly the other way. So you've got this, your back going one way and the chair going the other way. And when you look at the chair, it looks very inviting, and enveloping. But the truth is that there's a big gap between where your back is and where the chair is. And I couldn't believe that. And I also was looking at the way in which chairs were designed and how far forward a chair would come. In that work-based posture, people come in and they try a chair and they lean back and go, yeah, this is really comfy. The truth is you never work in that posture, right? A keyboard work-based posture is quite forward of upright. It's no good if the chair doesn't follow you there. So those were two of the key design criteria, in addition to ease of use, as well. So all of our chairs have a very specific extreme contour to fit into your lumbar spine, and then so they're quite pronounced in that area because your back is, and then also they have the ability to come forward of the absolute upright, and it's been amazing. If you're using so for me, if someone's using a cushion in the small of their back in our product, I would lose sleep. It's really, I think that's for me two of the main design features of any of the chairs that we do, and of any chair that we sell. We were selling chairs for a long time before we started getting into standing desks, because up until we started working with Veridesk, for me a desk was a desk. I could get somebody super comfortable at any desk within reason. As long as it was at an average height and it had the space for people to access correctly. We had also been approached with different partners to do electric desks, which had become more and more popular. And I always rejected it because for me, it's about what is the picture in 6 months' time, and we've done projects with international companies, and we've supplied chairs, and I'd go into their office floor and they've all got electric standing desks, okay? And when you look across that office floor, everyone is sitting. There's something wrong with that picture, okay? There's no, beyond a period of time, it just becomes an expensive desk. And we did not start to work on or design anything that was electric. I saw the Veridesk company when I visited the US, as I do annually to keep up with trends and technology, and I was super impressed with them because it's a basic pivot spring system that's instant, and their original product was just desk based, so you put it onto your existing desk, and it very easily transforms a normal desk into a sit-stand workstation. And I love the product because I thought finally we could really get compliance. And when we do an installation with Veridesk, with a bigger installation, and you look across a group of people, what you're seeing is what you want to see, which is some people sitting, some people standing, which is what you want to see at any given time. And that's what I've loved about Veridesk. We do have now units that are full desks, but it's still the same spring-loaded mechanism. So you don't plug it in, you just grasp the levers on either side and you lift it up. So we get people are utilizing what it's meant for. So it's been a terrific product to be involved with, and it was really the first brand that we took on from outside. Everything else we've done internally as the Ergotherapy brand and designed and developed. And this was the first agency that we took on. And it's been a terrific journey to work with them.
And has the market taken it up and people at home taken up the very desk and the standing, position, or people still sort of resisting standing while working?
It's becoming more and more popular, certainly. There was initial resistance. There was initial resistance to the concept for a lot of people. I think for people it was interesting, for people who have already suffered from back pain, and for OCD people, it's been life-saving, because not just back pain sufferers, but even very healthy people that need to move a lot. For them, it's been an amazing product. Literally, I mean, I got lawyers who are saying that to me, that they're able to literally just put in more hours in a day because they're able to stay at their desk between being able to sometimes sit and sometimes stand. The Very Desk is an incredibly well-made product out of the US, and it's a premium product. So I think the price point has been one that's taken the market a couple of years to absorb. We've been able to, and what we've done though is our pricing has been consistent for the last 4 years now with Very Desk. So don't let companies make dollar rand excuses. It's been possible for us to do it, but it's been really important for us to get the market to accept that this is what these products need to cost, and for the quality of what you're getting and the durability of what you're getting, but most importantly, the functionality of what you're getting. And at the same time, we offer the same commitment. At the end of the day, if you're finding that a Very Desk is not transforming your work experience, we wouldn't want you to have it.
Okay, great. And just, I do get a lot of questions, at Matrix Round with regards to sitting on a ball from Pilates instructors or fitness instructors. What's your view on ball sitting? My
view is controversial within the physio community because it's the same as my view on those kneeling chairs. I think that if you are working for half an hour to an hour maximum a day, or at a time, your core stabilizing and postural muscles can maintain that posture. But I do not advocate physio balls for a working day because it's not sustainable and it's not practical. So yeah, if you want to use it as an adjunct or just for for a small component of the day, fine. But for us, we don't advocate them as a standard solution. That's why I said to you, we said earlier, life's hard enough. Let the chair do some of the work, and I believe in that, in the right context, in the right way. But that's what gets us the results that we get.
And absolutely, and posture and alignment is not only got to do with core stabilizers, muscle strength. We talk about ligament creep, which is basically the lengthening of ligaments that start stretching as these ligaments become anhydrous as we get older. So something holding in the correct position is very, very important. Yes, we want to make sure our stabilizers are strong, alignment is good, but the wrong posture with this creep on the ligament, on the white tissue, makes a significant change to joint health. And I think, like I said, you could use it for short periods of time, for not long periods, because that's
Agreed.
Important.
Agreed.
Tell me about your consultations with regards to, exercises and, lighting and where the window should be, and, the levels of your Mac or your PC. Do you have consultants that go out into the home space, and are there consulting fees that you offer people? Because sometimes they've got great equipment, but they don't know the right eye level, or their shoulders are hunched up. And tell me about your training and consulting services into people's homes and workspaces.
Yeah. So we do that, and people can visit the website, and there's training and there's information as well that they can get at no charge as well, and just in their own time, that will allow them to get a sense of better ergonomic setup. Our focus is on things that people can make changes to. So we don't go into office environments for homes and say your house is facing the wrong direction, unfortunately, and you're getting a lot of it's about what can I manipulate positively. and that comes down to, yeah, my chair, my monitor, my mouse, my keyboard, the angles at which I'm working. One can avoid glare by using, certain tricks. But, so, and the position in which I'm working, the posture that I'm assuming while working, footrests, those kind of things, which are things that are, I think they're common, a lot of it is common sense, but not common practice. That's key, a lot of it. And it's about making sure that it becomes common practice for you. And I think, for example, people often use if you picture a keyboard and then a monitor, and people using paper, and let's say you've got some frame, things that you're writing on as well. So they keep their paper nearest them, and then the keyboard, and then the monitor. So what that means is that your shoulders are always elevated because you're always reaching for the keyboard, as an example. And there's also, the creeping mouse, where it starts close to you, and then by the end of the day, you're stretching across as you click. So for a lot of people, it's just about changing that around, keeping your keyboard and mouse close to you, so that your elbows are always close to your body, so that your muscles are relaxed in that way. So because as soon as your shoulders are elevated, as soon as your elbows are away from your body, there's contraction of muscles that are allowing that movement. So it's those kind of changes. It's trying to help people to understand the position of the monitor. So ideally the topmost line of your display is about at eye level, so that you're avoiding excessive flexion or extension. With laptops are trickier because they're cool, but they're ergonomically challenged little creatures. So it's about at least tilting the keyboard and screen so that you effectively have the keyboard at a more comfortable angle, and that you're at least elevating the monitor components of it slightly higher. It'll still be lower than the optimal, but it's a lot more comfortable than if it's absolutely flat. So these are the kind of things that we look at with people, and looking at their workstation. It's a puzzle, and we look at all the pieces of the puzzle and how you like to work as well, so that it fits.
Brilliant. I think there's a lot of value there with regards to where your arm should be, that they shouldn't be elevated close to you, as well as the screen level. So I think it's the whole package, as you said. Tell me what people can do today, if they don't have the finances. I mean, obviously there's been some significant economic repercussions because of COVID. What can people do? What's your biggest tip from an ergonomic point of view, other than obviously the products, visiting your website and buying product? What can they do that can benefit them right now?
There are things that there are certain things that they can do. I think first and foremost, it's about making a choice. It's about making a choice to make your workspace work. And I think people need to just be shaken up a little bit about what's possible, and that their workspace can really be a cool space and a positive space for them. I think it's about that. I think that it's about one of the big things is about saying to people, don't wait for pain to then initiate movement. I think for everyone, and everyone has a different threshold. I might feel very comfortable working for half an hour, but I know that by then I need to get up and move. Some will have less of a threshold, and especially if you've had a previous injury, if you've had a whiplash or something, your threshold sits very low. And it's not about then constantly pushing into that threshold and then you react. Because if you do that, you're not actually improving. But if you stay below that threshold actually rises. So it's also about keeping it practical and realistic. So ergonomic theory might say, take a break every 15 minutes, and we can't work like, if you're on a deadline, you can't work like that. So one of the things that I would advise people to do is apply a 1 hour rule. And for me, that's about saying to people, don't let 1 hour go by without doing something that involves a change in posture and a change in muscle activity. So worst case scenario, take a phone call standing up, go get a coffee, whatever the case might be. But don't let 1 hour go by without postural change. That becomes much more realistic. I think for shorter people, and even for people that are, not as tall as they think they are, some people might look at a footrest. So what you want to do is position your chair at your desk and you're going to get your chair at about at a height where your elbows are about, if you put your elbows are at about just below your desk, I would say, is probably where you should be at. When you're sitting now back in your chair, are your feet comfortably on the ground? If they're not, during the course of your workday, you are coming forward and perching on the front edge of your chair, and you're not maintaining your posture, your ideal posture, for sure you're not. Put a shoebox, something under your feet, and feel the difference that it makes to your posture and to your ability to relax your back. I think that's very impactful. And I think, lastly, I would say, there's a well-known saying that the loudest sound in the universe is the breaking of a habit. I think people need to take it on, but not take on too much either, because it's like, then you land up with zero change. I think that my advice also to people is to find the 2 or 3 things that will impact them most and work on that becoming a new norm for them.
Brilliant. And then the last question that I've got before we wrap up and just sort of end the show is that, and I ask this of all my guests, is people seem to not maintain, and you've touched on it, sustain change and maintain their change, their lifestyle changes. The research shows that between 80 and 95% of people who lose weight will regain that weight within 5 years and even more. So what can people do for sustained health changes? What can they put in place? What is the key advice that you can give people to maintain lifestyle changes?
Okay, a good question. Tough question. So you finished with a tough question, but a good question. I think, yeah, I've touched on it already. I think in terms of things becoming a new norm involves tremendous action on people. We are creatures of habit. And when we want to do things that involve change, we need to take it on. It doesn't just happen. And that's why I always advocate for people to choose the handful of things that are going to impact me most positively for now. Okay? And those can be very, we all know, like if you read a new business book, or you read a self-help manual, or you go to a lecture, most things leave us entirely unchanged within a few days. Entirely unchanged. Okay? So what we advocate is to say to people, hold on to the handful of things that are going to impact me most right now, okay? And try and implement that daily for the next 30 days, okay? Beyond that period of time, if you've done it correctly and you've chosen correctly, it'll start to become easier and more of your norm. Beyond that, you can find the next challenge and, and possibly add to it. But in that way, the changes generally become more sustainable. And I think you need to be kind to, I think people need to be kind to themselves as well, because they will slip, and you will have the cheesecake, on the diet. But at the same time, then, so be kind to yourself, but at the same time, get back on and get the first 30 days in and share your challenge, challenge yourself, and then put it out there. Get family support, let them critique you if they, as well. And something that I've started doing much later in life is visualizing a lot more and using that as a technique. It was interesting. One of the books, a book that I recently read regarding the methodology of successful people, and the different, 100 different people were asked the same question, 100 successful people in all different walks of life, but that have achieved significant success in whatever world they occupy, were asked the same set of questions. One of the very few consistent threads that ran through those 100 people, not all 100, but a very high percentage, was meditation. Very fascinating for me, because it's something that I've really taken to, fairly recently. but visualizing what you want to be, and where, and is a very, and where you want to improve is a very powerful thing, because the subconscious occupies so much of our mind space and brain space. So we need to start to create visual images for our subconscious, so that we can actualize our potential in our conscious as well.
Fantastic. So if I summarize,
yeah,
it's a few tips, a few pieces that you can take that are going to move the needle the most, that you can sustain over 30 days. Family support, which is the pillar of community in Made to Thrive. Get your family or your friends that you can hold account to. That's crucial. Meditation, visualization, which are very, very powerful, that people have been doing for generations. Just foreseeing a future that you want to be part of, not accepting the norm that you're in right now. And those are words of wisdom. And so I do have one last question that's popped up. In 10 years' time, if we have another podcast interview, and hopefully it's going to be sooner than that, but what will the workspace look like with virtual reality? I get a lot of information from medical futurists and what's going to happen within the workspace. Where do you see it going, in the future, 10 years' time, from an ergonomic and workplace environment?
Yeah, I think that there'll be a further merging of home versus corporate. We'd already started seeing it before COVID, in terms of the corporate environment becoming a lot softer, fabrics, designs, and things becoming much more homey-like within a corporate space. I think there'll be a further merging of that. People will have, I think people will return to corporate environments, but there's been a paradigm shift that will not change, in the sense that companies have now seen the impact that efficiency can be maintained. So I think that what that will do is actually create future opportunity for people to do a lot more remote work, but office space will still be available. And because of technology, though, I think future leaders will be those that retain the ability to communicate verbally and not through a WhatsApp.
Words of wisdom from Gary Arenson. We've partnered with Ergotherapy at Made to Thrive. You will get a 10% discount on all the chairs and all the products that he offers. Where can people find you, Gary, and your company?
So they can visit our website, ergotherapy.co.za. They are welcome to email me personally, gary@ergotherapy.co.za, as well, with any questions that they have. And look forward to working with you and your followers.
Great. I know you have some social handles. Your Facebook, are you on Instagram? Just for those that are following me on social media.
So we are on Facebook, Instagram, and we have, I'm grinning because as a company we are completely engaged in social media. As an individual,
okay.
I'm an old-fashioned guy. I still think with a pen in my hand, but we are on all of those platforms, and you won't see my face on them, but we are certainly fully engaged and constantly commenting and sharing our information on those platforms. Absolutely.
Oh, great. This podcast is going to be loaded up onto our YouTube channel, Steve Stavs, and as well as we're going to slice and dice it on Steve Stavs ZA and Made to Thrive ZA, as well as Instagram, Steve Stavs ZA. If you've got any questions or comments about ergonomics and how you can improve your workspace, then either let myself know at Made to Thrive or contact Gary direct. Thanks so much for your time. And what I do appreciate and so grateful to you, Gary, is that you are empowering people to live a life of absolute thriving, making sure their workspaces are comfortable, that they're not living in pain or going back into an environment that is causing significant damage to their neuromusculoskeletal health as well as their cardiovascular health. So I salute you. It's been, I think you've been in 20 years in this industry. You're not a flash in the pan. You've got amazing products, and I wish you all favor and blessing, that you grow from strength to strength and keep adapting, keep on pivoting. Not only did we get some ergonomic advice and tips from Gary, we've got some words of wisdom and pearls of wisdom. So thank you so much. And if you've got any comments, leave them with us at Made to Thrive. Thanks so much.